start off here, I'm using a Tombow Fudeno Senki pen, which I typically prefer more than most. I'm just going to start blocking in and feathering in some lines that I pretty much have this all penciled, so this should go fairly smooth unless I make some choices later on because I don't think something's working. But I'm basically going over my pencils. I tried to protect my pencils while I was working on the demon there, but they did get a little smudged. And because I had the intention of erasing the pencils eventually, then like if you're doing something like this, you would not want to use fixative, even workable fixative. I wouldn't chance it because you might not be able to erase the pencils completely when you're done. This might be the last illustration for this particular Tombow pen. I've been using this one for quite a while, and it's starting to run low on ink. The tip's starting to dry out a little bit, but they do last a long time, and pretty much I can still generate a fairly fine line, even though a brand new one would have a much sharper tip. Now, if you didn't catch my last video on drawing the demon, I'm drawing this for a trading card that I'm going to make. I have some other trading cards that have zombie themes to them. And then they have a message about the afterlife on the back side. This one is going to be focusing on psychics and just where their message comes from, if they're not a total fraud. If it be possible at all for psychics to be hearing a message or divining a message to whoever they're working for, customer or client, they might think that they're contacting someone beyond the grave. I think that's most of the time the psychic claims to be doing, or telling the future, getting a message about the future. But if you go to a psychic, how can you be sure that he or she is speaking to your loved one, maybe your mom or dad, or maybe it's a child that you've lost? How can you be sure that they are speaking to those people? Now, a demon, they can follow you around. They can look through your house. They can convey information to other demons. How do you know that that psychic isn't receiving a message from a demon who knows all about you and is just trying to turn you away from God with his message? He doesn't have to work real hard to do that. Now, as far as the artistic side of this goes, I had my mom pose for this illustration. It doesn't look like her, but I just used the pose. My mom is a thin woman, but I changed the appearance to make her look more like your stereotypical prototype of a psychic that you might find in a movie. You know, an old creepy lady with the brooch on her, around her, a medallion or brooch or whatever you call it around her neck, and the scarf and the sweater. So I'm going to make her appearance like her face is going to have very wrinkly features to it. She's an older woman. Her skin is fairly weathered. She's very thin, so her cheeks are sunken in. And there is a light source in front of her. There's the globe, which I'm gonna imagine is gonna be glowing a little bit. That's as far as this illustration is gonna be colored. I'm gonna color it, scan it, and bring it into Photoshop, and do all the flats, and then do a little airbrushing. So I'm trying to keep that in mind with this. But that being known ahead of time, that my intention is to color it. I really don't have to go into super detail on some things, but I don't know, I kind of like this illustration, and I'm just going to flesh it out. I'm having a good time fleshing out the facial features here. Now, when you're working in pen and ink like this, and it's more illustrative, you can feel free to outline certain features. Whereas if you were working in oil paints or something that was more blendy, you probably wouldn't use outline as much for some of the features. Although Norman Rockwell, if you looked at a lot of Norman Rockwell's like charcoal sketches, and it's my understanding, I mean, I've always wanted to get the one book, Rockwell on Rockwell, where he talks about, I guess he goes into in-depth detail on his technique. That's my understanding about that book. I do have The Life of the Illustrator by Norman Rockwell, and he does go into some detail on there, but apparently he doesn't. This other book is much better, but it does give you some insight into how he worked. He did just recalling from memory, he did drew charcoal underneath as his understudy on the painting, and I don't know whether at that point they would not have had like a spray fixative or anything like that, so I don't know whether he used a fixative under his oils or not, or he might have, I'm not sure, but it would have been probably wise, because of the time frame that he was having to crank out these paintings, like for the Post, the Saturday Evening Post. He was having to crank these out, I think one a month. So to aid in the drying of the paintings, like I typically, if I'm doing an oil painting, I will paint the block in acrylic, and that just helps you get started quicker. You don't have to wait for that block in phase to dry. It's because the acrylics dry right away. You can work right on it. So I don't know whether maybe he did an acrylic block in, and that's why you don't see that his charcoal's coming through or mixing with the paint as much. I always wondered that, because he did work in charcoal underneath, and how he kept it from contaminating the paint when he painted. But a lot of times, if you look at what I was getting at, if you look at Rockwell's paintings, there is an outline, and there's the characters are almost, even though super realistic, they do have an elasticity to them. They're almost like in a way, not quite a caricature of maybe how those people, like he used models often and photographs and stuff, and I imagine that just because of his style, that a lot of his people in his paintings They were slightly caricatured from the original. But I'm not sure. Like I said, I'd like to get that book, but it's hard to come by. I don't think it's in print anymore, and it's can be kind of expensive. But it's probably worth it. It probably is. I should just spend the money and get it. But back to the outlining thing. So especially when you're using pen and ink and it's this kind of illustration, this is more of a comic book style illustration. Your illustration is kind of living in the world where it's on the edge of being a full-blown cartoon. So outlining things is okay. And I think I've said this before in my other videos, very effective if used wisely. Now here I'm using this, I can never remember the name of this pen. It is, the pen itself is, I assume, in Japanese, but it's a Bimoji, B-I-M-O-J-I brush pen. And the only reason I have this, it's made by Kuretake, K-U-R-E-T-A-K-E. The only reason I have this, I think I've seen other people use it on videos and stuff, but it was on clearance at my local art store for like $3, so I couldn't pass it up. And it's a nice pen. If you've seen any of my other videos where I've talked about it, I think it's a little nicer than the Pentel brush pen. They both have their uses, but like as far as it just handles a little bit better, and you can use it with a little bit more detail. So here I'm pretty much just going to shadow in her hand because the hand is pretty much in shadow. I'm trying to bring some things out, and so in order to bring in some contrast in the illustration, I wanted, like with the demon, I think I talked about in the video on the demon, I really am trying to shoot for a 50-50 mix of darks and lights. I would really like to see a 50-50 mix of ink compared to white Bristol coming through. And I did illustrate this on Strathmore Bristol. It is the 300 series, I believe. 300 series. You want it to be, okay, here we go. It is the 300 series Strathmore Bristol for the smooth surface Bristol. I think that would be, if I'm not mistaken, hot press. I always get that mixed up, the hot press and cold press paper. It doesn't say on the cover of the tablet, but it's 11 by 14. And I've been pretty happy with this. You can pretty much find this anywhere if you need to find Bristol paper. Now I don't know if I've ever used 500 series, but apparently 500 series is supposed to be the best. I don't know if you agree with that, if you've used 500 series and it is. Let me know in the comments, because I'd be curious to know what your take is on it. And it's made in the USA. You can't beat that. I like to buy products that are made in the USA. When within reason, you know, sometimes that'll cost you a little bit more money buying American-made products. But I try to do that if I can. It's not always possible. So this is going to, like I said, it's for a trading card. And the trading card is going to be 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So it's going to be reduced quite a bit. And I'm probably putting in more detail than necessary, because a lot of this finer stuff is probably not going to show as well in that size. But I'll scan it at 600 dpi, and then I'll flat it, which is, flatting is you just isolate the main color areas. So like maybe if her sweater was going to be a light green, then I'd flat the whole thing light green, and then you your scanned layer you set as the ink layer. Once it's cleaned up, you set as a multiply layer, and then you can see the other layers through it. So pretty much just when you select multiply, it keeps the black inks and lets every other layer underneath come through it in color through the white that's left. Pretty much makes the white transparent, so you can keep your ink layer on top. Trying to get this video out in time for Inktober. It is also close to October 31st, Halloween. So kind of a creepy subject matter that's fitting for the time of the year. This illustration, as well as some of my other illustrations, will be for sale on my website, inkwarfare.com. I also have t-shirts, stickers, the trading cards that I've had printed so far, which more are of a zombie theme. I've got one that's of some zombie basketball players, one of a kind of a mummy coming out of a tomb, and the third one is of a zombie coming out of a grave in a graveyard. And they're meant to, there's a message on the back. It's meant to pose questions about the afterlife and whether zombies are real. And if you believe the Bible, then you believe everybody will be resurrected from the dead someday. So in a sense, we'll all become zombies one day. You can actually, on my website, you can read the message that's on the card. If you click on go to my store, and you don't have to get the cards to read the message or see the illustrations. I also have the illustrations from my G.I. Joe series on there. Anyone that hasn't sold yet, by the time you watch this video. So the clothing on her arm here, you know, where if you look where his fingers are pressing into her forearm there, I thickened up the line to kind of show like an indentation there. So I heavied the line of fabric coming out from around the sides of the fingers to give that impression of him placing pressure on her arm. Just trying to give the impression that, or the notion that she is under his control. Not that a psychic is possibly going to feel anybody contacting their head or arm or anything like that, but for this illustration, it just helps to drive the message home that he's in control of her thoughts and whatever it is that message that she's receiving from him. Now this, where her arm is bent, there's going to be quite a bit of wrinkling in the fabric of the sweater. But you don't want to get too carried away. So I've blocked in my heavier lines. I'm going to start feathering the darker blocks of ink in a little bit here to create some transition from dark to light. Notice how the dark spot I put on her cheek there really brings the cheek out, and you can be kind of apprehensive at times putting like a big dark section on a face, especially a woman. But for the purposes of this drawing, the character in question is this old pruned up psychic. More dried up, wrinkly skin. I've said this in other videos, if you really want to get an idea of the muscle structure underneath somebody's face, you might want to try finding some elderly people or older people to draw, because their skin can be thinner, and so the musculature underneath their skin kind of comes forward a little bit more than on a younger person, unless they're some emaciated drug addict or something. But yeah, older people, there's some value in their faces can have more character and be more interesting to draw often. If you're on the subway or sitting at the mall or waiting around your hotel and you've got your sketchbook, just have a look around and do some quick sketches of some older people. And you'll find that to be true. Or if if grandma or grandpa are still alive, or maybe an aunt or uncle, they can make interesting subjects. And they'd be more than happy probably to sit with you, just to spend time with you and converse with you while that's going on. When my grandfather was alive, one of my grandfathers, he was the subject of a few of my drawings. So I want the psychic's face to have some character, some texture, some character. Like look at her forehead; it's very, very wrinkly. And then around the underside of her lips, there's her just below the lip. Her face is more wrinkled than a young person's face would be. See, I kind of like to do that, what I just did there, along the shoulders and stuff. Feather in some lines as kind of a transition of a plane. That can be effective. And also, there's not really going to be any backlighting there, but if a colorist wanted to creatively try to backlight that, they might be able to. Now in this illustration, her hands are almost going to be like a character in unto themselves because they're so wrinkly and veiny. So I'm going to have a good time inking them. I'm probably going to do most of this illustration with that Tombow pen, except for the larger blocks of black ink. See those lines that I just used there? They kind of hint at a transition of a plane there, where her armpit kind of transitions into the upper part of her chest there. You know, I turn my page a lot. That's okay to do. I know it can be distracting on the video here, but it's a lot easier for me to turn the page and ink some lines than it is to try to feather or ink them while keeping the paper stationary. So I apologize, but it's easier for me to, like I said, I want those lines to taper down, and it's harder to do that if I don't turn the page. I just picked up the if you happen to follow comic books at all, I just picked up the second issue of Skin Breakers, the new David Finch comic book, and I've got issue 1 and 2, and I've yet to read them yet. It's like I'm kind of putting it off so I can. It's his first full comics in quite a while, so just trying to savor the experience, I guess. But yeah, issue 2's already out. I have it, but yet to read either. I did also pick up. Dan Moore has been doing Superman off and on, and I love his illustrations. I've said that before. Like, he is such a good artist, and the one thing about it, he knows how to use his tools. I don't know if I kind of suspect that he works digitally, and his forms are, if you pay attention to his forms, they're very accurate, and he doesn't spend a lot of time with sometimes he does, like sometimes on Once and Future he did. He doesn't spend a crazy amount of time with his feathering and rendering, but like he's just so effective at what he does and has his own unique style. So I really enjoy Dan Moore's illustrations, his artwork. Speaking of Skinbreaker and Dan Moore, Skinbreaker is written by Robert Kirkman, and he's partnered up with Dan Moore now on Transformers. So I picked up, I think, the first issue that they've done together. I think it's issue 25. I'd have to go look, but I haven't read that yet either. But I have flipped through it, and the artwork looks really, really good. Just found this local shop. Well, it's about 30 miles away, but that's about local for any comic book shop near me that offers 25% off every issue you buy, which I appreciate that, because comics they're pretty expensive when you think about how much time you spend reading them and flipping through them. So that's pretty generous to give his customers 25% off. It's just tough for me to get back there, like, 'cause 30 miles is 30 miles. That may be nothing to some people. It means maybe you commute 30 miles to work every day. I don't, so I'm not used to driving that far. So here I'm going to throw in a little shadow right behind her head to kind of bring out. I didn't have this in my pencils, but I decided that this would work better than just leaving the details of the chair there. And I'm happy with the way it turned out. I think it did work. That's one thing about both the Pentel brush pen and that Bimoji pen is it's a little difficult at this scale to work some finer details. So you do have to go in and clean up your whatever you've done with a finer tip pen. At least I think so. I tend to use my cross hatching. So there I did a little bit of cross hatching there. I tend to cross hatch very conservatively. I know some artists are really good at cross hatching and work it into almost every area of their drawing. I don't know where I was. I think it was on. I think I was watching Antique Roadshow, and somebody had a print there. I can't remember who the artist was, but it was a print from the 1800s or 1700s. And man, so it was I don't know if it was a woodcut print, but this artist had painted something. They were an American artist, but they resided in America at the time, but they were originally from England. And they went back to England to have prints made of this painting. So they were made in black and white ink. And just the detail and the way, if you ever looked at, took $1 out of your pocket and just looked up close at how intricate all the line work is, it's incredible. And that's what, this painting, this was printed in the same way with that style of the way that these guys organize their lines with thickness and the values that they get, the value range of lights and darks and grays and shadows. It's just incredible what they can do in printing and what these guys did way back then. I mean, this painting. And then I was thinking about, maybe there's some simple way that they did it, but they also had to transpose this illustration and shrink it down, because it was a big painting. Started out a big painting, and then they made prints of it that were only probably about I don't know, not even maybe 24 by 30. And so they have to back then they took somebody's painting and they recreated it on a plate. I didn't take printing in college, so I really don't know what goes into etching and lithographs and stuff like that. I'm not familiar with it whatsoever, so if I get something wrong here, please don't hold it against me. But anyhow, the way that this painting was reproduced, it was just phenomenal. And how they reduced that painting and had all the values and the scale of lights and darks present in this painting, it was just incredible what those guys could do back then. And it was probably all hand done, I have to imagine, all this line work and thickness and thin lines. And like I said, I wish I knew more about it and how they made these prints back then, but I almost think that they were working kind of in a negative, where they had every cut would be something that didn't hold the ink, so they kind of had to think about things inverted in a way. And I don't know if I could have done that, because man, I probably go nuts trying to capture all that detail. It just seems very time consuming. Like I said, maybe I'm wrong and there was some simple way that they did this stuff back then, but I can't picture it, and I don't think so. If you know something to the contrary, let me know in the comments. But like I said, just take a dollar bill, or I've got a $20 bill, or and just take a close-up look at just how George Washington's face is rendered there. It's all with line, and it looks like you're looking at a black and white photograph. I mean, that's how well it's done. Pretty incredible. Like I said, I don't know if I would want to work on something that was that detailed. I might lose my mind. You do one of them and you're done. Just to change the subject a little bit, in my last video, I had mentioned the book by C.S. Lewis, The Screwtape Letters. I just wanted to read you this. It pretty much sums up the whole book, and kind of in a way sums up this illustration. Because I know people that, well, in a way, because I know people that dabble in visiting psychics and stuff like that, and psychic fairs and going for readings, but still claim to be Christian or religious. And I just wanted to read this passage that kind of relates to that. So the book, The Screwtape Letters, is pretty much written about the demonic world and one particular character. And it kind of gives you a perspective on how they might operate. So this is from page 46 in my version. I don't know what chapter this is, but it says, if you can once get him, so Screwtape is writing to his nephew, and they're both demons, and he's giving his nephew Wormwood demonly advice, because he's much more experienced in the behaviors and methods of the demonic realm. And this particular passage kind of speaks to people that are somewhat religious. It says, if you can once get him to the point of thinking that religion is all very well up unto a point, you can feel quite happy about his soul. A moderate religion is as good for us as no religion at all, and more amusing. So just to reiterate that, a moderate religion is good for us, that's being good for the demons, good for the dark side. A moderate religion is good for us as no religion at all. So for you to be just somewhat religious, maybe go to church on Easter, Christmas, things like that, have this perspective that you're a good person and that you're going to heaven, that's all they need to do. They don't need to have you worship Satan. They don't need to have you worship false demonic gods. But just a moderate religion, even if it's Christianity, if you're just kind of a lukewarm practice, when you kind of pick and choose what you want out of the Bible, that's all they need to do. And so, like in this illustration, I know people who claim to be Christian that go to psychics and dabble in stuff. And if you were reading the scriptures, so the Bible never really uses the word psychics. I don't believe it uses words like soothsayers, necromancers, diviners, things like that, and they're typically in the same breath. The words such as like abomination or demonic are used to describe them. A passage that pretty much sums this up is found in Deuteronomy 18. I'll start with verse 9. When you come into the land which the Lord your God is giving you, that'd be Israel. Israel's coming into the land that God's going to give them after they cross the river Jordan. So it says, when you come into the land which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls upon the dead. For all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God drives them out from before you. So that pretty much sums it up on what God thinks about psychics. So a psychic could be included in as a soothsayer, one who interprets omens, one who not conjures spells, or a medium or a spiritist. God's pretty clear that his people are not supposed to be involved in parapsychology or divination or going to a clairvoyant, whatever they're called. And if you're not a Christian, the same thing. That just go back to that passage from the Screwtape letter. All the demonic world, they're at war. The demons are at war with God. So to try to win that war, all they have to do is put something else in your life that's more important than God, that keeps you from a pursuit of finding truth. They keep you in darkness, living a lie. That can be anything. That can be anything that you place in your life that's more important than your relationship with God, whether it be sports, your car, your occupation, even your family and loved ones can become an idol. Money's a huge one. You can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and money. God and mammon. So back to the psychic aspect of what I'm talking about. There's this whole thing about psychics contacting the dead. And Jesus told a story in, I think it's Luke 16. I might have mentioned this in my last video. There's the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. I'm just going to read it here. It's in Luke chapter 16, starting in verse 19. There was a certain rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. But there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of sores, who was laid at his gate, desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So it was that the beggar died, and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. Then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and you are tormented. And besides all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us. Then he said, I beg you therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. Abraham said to him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if one goes to them from the dead, they will repent. But he said to him, If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rise from the dead. So that's Jesus speaking in this passage, and he's the one that rose from the dead. And many people hear about him, but don't believe. Now, just on a side note here, Abraham told Lazarus that his siblings had Moses and the prophets. So they had the Old Testament, they had the law, the 10 Commandments. And they still didn't believe and had turned away from the ways of God. Now the part of the passage I wanted to focus on had to do with, so you have this rich man who died, and he went to Hades, which is hell. And then Lazarus, who was the poor man, who, but we were led to believe, had followed God, not particularly because he was poor, but anyhow, he was taken to Abraham's bosom, which Abraham would be in heaven. Now, there's a few things to note in this passage. The rich man asked Abraham if Lazarus could dip his finger in water and cool the rich man's tongue. So the rich man, again, he's in Hades, in hell, and Lazarus is in heaven with Abraham. He's told that the gulf by Abraham, and besides all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from here pass to us. Another thing to note is that if the rich man, he's in hell, why can't he communicate that message through a medium, through someone who communes with the dead? Obviously he can't. He's asking that Lazarus being physically sent, I beg you therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers. So he's asking that Lazarus be sent to his father's house, and that's not doable either. This passage always kind of struck me as confirmation that it's not possible to at will communicate with the dead. So if it's not possible, who the heck are psychics communicating with when they propose to be receiving messages about the future or predicting the future? I know they're not always interpreting like messages from the beyond. You know, they use tools like tarot cards and things like that. Where is this claimed supernatural power coming from that they have? Well, the real explanation is that it's coming from something darker than they might not suspect. It's coming from the demonic realm. But don't think about these things. Look into them. Research them. You know, don't just believe me. I'm no theologian. I'm just putting this out there, this artwork, the trading card that's going to have a similar message on the back of it. Just putting this out there to encourage conversation, to get people thinking. So they're not like in the screw tape, the passage in the screw tape letters. So they're not, let me find it here. Oh man, I found it so easily earlier. Let's see. So that you're not just getting to the point where you're just thinking religion is all very well up to a point. there's limitations to how far you'll go spiritually. A moderate religion is good for us as no religion at all. So a moderate religion is good for the demons as no religion at all. That's true. So if you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, but you're visiting psychics, going to psychic fairs and what have you, I'd encourage you to stop and think about just what you're doing, what you're involved in, and that the reality of what's going on there possibly. Like I said, unless the person you're going to is just a complete hoax, which is probably the case for many of these people. But just consider these things. That's all I'm going to say about it in this video. I'm going to get back to talking about the artwork. So here I've been working on the hand, and I kind of wanted the hand to look like the top of the hand is more in shadow because the globe that she has her hand on is maybe glowing a little bit. That's what I'm probably going to do when I color it. So I decided that I should add a little bit more shadow to the forehead there, and I didn't have it in my pencils. I don't know if you can see the pencils very well on here anymore because I've got them pretty much covered up. But her hand there, you notice that I added your veins. They tend to slant. If you look at your veins, they tend to slant a lot of times towards your first knuckle. So if you're drawing knuckles in the hand, they don't have to be like anatomically accurate. I mean, if you were to look at several different hands, I think you wouldn't find that the veins are exactly in the same spot. I mean, they're relatively in the same spot, but just like with everything, people's facial features, things like that, some people's eyes are further apart, some people's noses are shorter, some people's noses are bigger, their mouths are wider, teeth are bigger, things like that. But like veins in the hand, if you try to kind of have them spiderweb, start out narrow at the wrist, like maybe one line of a vein, and then it splits, and then it splits, and it splits, and angles towards the first and second knuckle slightly. I think that can be kind of convincing, believable. And she has really bony hands. I was thinking about it afterwards. I should have put like some rings on her finger, and I guess it's not too late now, but I'm not gonna. I could have put some jewelry on her wrists and rings on her fingers. I think that's probably like your stereotypical psychic would be decorated in some kind of jewelry, gems, stones, whatever. If at times I get work in here, and sometimes I've got the camera kind of held a little closer to the page, or mounted closer to the page. Sometimes I might draw a little off the page. I apologize for that. I just start to get carried away. I see a spot that I want to work on. In this video, I'm not really going to do the background. I'll show you the final product at the end with the background. So here I'm just kind of working out how dark do I go with the top of the hand. So the very crest, the top of the hand along, between the middle and the third finger, that's probably going to be the darkest if you had light glowing from the bottom. So you could either choose to make it really dark, which would be effective, but here I kind of wanted you to still see her hands and the bones in her hands, and see the veins. Now this crystal ball, I didn't really have any reference for it. I just kind of drew something that looked kind of cool. I don't know how accurate it is to the official crystal balls that I imagine there's probably many different designs to crystal balls if you were to Google them. But this, I just kind of made this one up. Or I did make it up. I didn't kind of make it up. This one, I don't know. This, I was kind of just basing it on, old monster movies. Trying to think of, I can't remember. I think there's some there's probably more than one Vincent Price movie that has, some creepy old clairvoyant in it. I kind of think of those, kind of makes me think of two of those, the arcade psychic there. So you got the life-size psychic sitting in the glass box, and you put your coin in and get your reading. I think they're usually wearing like some kind of turban. You don't see those too much anymore. It's funny, I don't even know if I've ever seen on American Pickers them finding one of those. I was just reading the new Batman that just came out with Jorge Jimenez illustrating, where he changed the suit to the old school suit with the blue cowl and blue cape with the gray tights. And I thought, Jorge Jimenez used to be all digital. And I was gonna go back and check on Instagram. I thought he started working with ink pens. I don't know if he ever has, or I'm pretty sure I saw a post maybe last year where he just started doing that. Where most of the time he had always worked digitally. And he's one of those artists that he uses particular brushes to do his shading. So I'll have to look into it more. It'd be interesting to see how he accomplishes that, working with just pen on paper. But he's an incredible artist. I was looking at that book last night, and his anatomy is just dead on. Even his panels that are like the smaller panels that are far off. The figure, like Batman's figure, and just looks fantastic. He is a really good artist, and he has his own unique style. I mean, you know immediately when you look at a book that's drawn by Jorge Jimenez that it's him that had illustrated it. Kind of bummed. I kind of didn't realize that I had picked up the second printing. I would have liked to have found a first printing of that first issue, but oh well. I got 25% off it. He's an artist that his artwork kind of has a little bit of elasticity, like that cartoony aspect to it, but still looks realistic. His figures can, especially when he does young people. I think he did a series with, I don't know which iteration of Robin it was, Robin and Superboy, and it was almost like the way he portrayed them, is kind of encroaching on manga in a little, I think. I may be wrong. If you disagree with me, you can leave me a comment. like they had kind of wide mouths, and they were more, the heads they were more caricature, like the heads were a little bigger. Now kids' heads do tend to look a little bigger on their little bodies, but I think some of that carries over to what he's done with Batman. But it works. It works in the same way that Norman Rockwell made it work. But like I said, I'd really like to look in to see. I'll have to look him up on Instagram and see. I'm kind of curious to see how his pen and ink pages look. Because like I said, if you look at stuff that he's done digitally, he uses a particular pen for shading that it's kind of like has separated fingers, and it gives that impression of feathering without having to feather each individual line. But the way that he works, it's almost like a graphite kind of tool that he uses. I don't know what digital platform that that he normally works on. I really have a hard time with digital. I tend to be a lot tighter working like this. Digital, it's difficult for me, and maybe it's just because of the tools that I'm using. I'm just drawing in Procreate on an iPad. And I did illustrate a book for someone where I used Procreate to create all the illustrations. Because of the time frame and stuff, it didn't have to be. I was under a tight crunch. Because of the time frame, it just worked for me to do it digitally rather than have to scan all the images. It was By All Means by Ray Comfort I had illustrated. And Ray Comfort's a Christian evangelist, and the book called for several illustrations of Christ on the cross. So I used digital to do that, all the illustrations, to draw all the illustrations in that book. But like I said, I was under a pretty heavy time crunch, so it just kind of worked to do it digitally. Looking back, I might have done something different. That's always the case. With your work, you look back and wish you had done something a little, but you don't get, sometimes you don't get those second chances most of the time. And I heard somebody say recently, if you're not unhappy with your work from 5 years ago, then you're not growing. And that really sums it up. If you're not unhappy with your artwork from 5 years ago, then you're not growing. That I really took that to heart, because that's the way I feel, and I think that's the way a lot of artists feel. You look at stuff that you did, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years ago, and you kind of cringe, and you're like, I don't really want. I hope nobody sees that. I've gone onto Instagram and deleted stuff on my account before because I just didn't think it represented where I was at now. And that's, it's a process. Art's a process. I kind of wonder if any of the old masters felt that way, But you should always be, when you think that you've arrived at something, then you stop learning, you stop growing in it. When your ego gets in the way. I'm constantly, there's artists that I admire that I'll never draw like. I'm not even interested in drawing like them. But I can incorporate things that they do into you can, into your style. If there's artists that I'm trying to think of some artists right now that I really love their work, but have no intention of or desire to draw like them. You might know of an artist that, if you're watching this, that you feel the same way about, but there are things you can glean from that artist, and incorporate into your work, whether it's just small things. You know, there's there's comic book artists that I love that, you know, they would never use like all this, you know, like this line work that I have in rendering and stuff on here, and you know, they can keep things kind of simple. Actually, I recently read that, I mentioned it on my last video, the Daredevil Cold Day in Hell. It's a real departure from Steve McNiven's other stuff that he's done. Quite a departure. Like, I mean, quite different. And I really liked it, even though I really like some of the other stuff that he's done. But it was basically all, there weren't any like blocked, I don't recall any like blocked in shadows or anything like that. It was all very liney, like in lines that were this, you know, he used, like I said, it almost looked like I said this in my last video, it almost looked like he used rapidograph pens in a way, because the line weight didn't vary that much. But it worked. Do I have any intention of drawing that way? No, not at this juncture. But one thing that worked too is he knows his anatomy, his forms, the structures, they were all accurate. It was just really well done. And like I said, it kind of made the book more memorable that he had drawn it that way, in a way. And maybe that was his intention. I don't know. I haven't seen any interviews with him or read anything about it. But it was quite a departure, kind of, from some of the other work that he's done. My son has a coloring book that has a bunch of black and white pages from, like, they had taken pages of his artwork and put it in this coloring book from the Avengers Civil, or not Avengers Civil, but from Civil War, the Civil War series. Man, there's some incredible illustrations in that book. And it's kind of nice because there's no color, so you can just see it for what it is. There's another incredible artist, but not afraid to branch out and like completely, his style is kind of starting to morph. And like I said, I just think the way that he drew that Daredevil series, it just makes it a little bit more memorable. When you know, years from now, when anybody who's read it thinks back on it, they'll remember that style. And we'll see. I don't know what he'll do, you know, if it was just for that book only, or that's one thing that he's going to keep to. I think I follow him on Instagram, and he's been doing a lot of these illustrations with characters that are beat up and bloody, which kind of happens to not to be a spoiler, but there's times in that book where I think Daredevil gets beat up and bloodied. But we'll see if he continues with that style, or he just kind of incorporated it into that one book. And it's almost to the extreme, really. The technique's to the extreme. So with this crystal ball here, I'm planning on doing a lot of, or compensating for what I hadn't rendered here with my coloring process. So I'm not going to go into like crazy detail here, and as small as it's going to show up. You know, if you say you're doing something like this, and it has to be done in, you know, maybe you get a week or 2 weeks, or maybe not even, maybe you get a couple days. You kind of have to pick and choose is it necessary? This is going to be showing up much smaller. Like, say you were doing something like this for a company, it's going to be showing up much smaller than the size that you're working. Is it worth the time? What can you best put your energy into? What areas of the illustration should you spend your majority of your time on? And really, when somebody looks at, I don't know, if you pay attention to when you observe art, I'm not sure what the average person, the time span the average person spends observing like a painting or a page in a comic book or a panel in a comic book, but I don't believe it's that long. I don't even think it's a minute. I'd heard that recently on a podcast. I think it was on the Draftsman podcast. They were talking about this. So sometimes the things that you do in your artwork are really only for you, you know, like somebody's not like me drawing this candle right here and like the candle holder. Really, most people are probably not going to pay attention to how I rendered that candle holder. But I wanted it to look a certain way. And I guess that's in a sense how you incorporate your style into an illustration. Because for the most part, somebody looking at this illustration is probably only going to be looking at the figure. They could care less about the chair or the background. I mean, I can appreciate a good background and how much time it takes to draw one, but really I have to force myself when I'm reading through like a comic or something like that to, maybe a painting's different, like, you know, especially if it's a landscape. I'm always looking at technique and how somebody painted something, you know, like how they went about it. But, you know, for the most part, nobody cares about that stuff in the background. They're not really paying attention to it. But that being said, I hate to open a comic and find that there's like no backgrounds ever. Okay, well that's going to wrap it up. Here's the final image, kind of zoomed in on the psychic so you can see her. I did the background afterwards. I didn't want to bore you with the details of the background. If you like this video, please select the like button or subscribe to my channel, or check out my website, inkwarfare.com, and you can also find me on Instagram at ink.warfare. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll check out my other videos or the next one coming. Thanks again.